A Superman review from a Marvel fan. Let's get into it. Starting off with the story, I thought it was really engaging and fun, and I thought there was some brilliant political undertones with the conversations that were being had, and I thought it was very relevant to the world that we're in right now. And I really enjoy when films do that, because one of the best things about Star Wars, which I love, is there's a massive conversation about the Empire and what that represents in the real world and things like that. And this film, I think, does that as well to some degree, and I really enjoyed the message that it was trying to convey in this film. I really also enjoyed the difficulties that Superman's going through. He's being challenged on whether he is human enough to be saving the people. Lex Luthor calls him out how much of an alien he is and things like this. And we see obviously in the beginning of the film that his message while he's getting healed is from his biological parents. Obviously, it's not the full message. But at the end of the film, I think he finally fulfills he feels more human. He's got the messages and the things to make him feel better is the time he spent with his parents on Earth. And it's just like highlights of his childhood growing up and things like that, which I really loved as well. That contrast from the beginning to the end. One of the best things about the story as well, in my opinion, I feel like I really loved the fact that the scene where he gets called out and Lex Luthor finds the full message and he shares it on the news. I really liked how he goes back to his apartment. Obviously, Lois Lane's there as well. But in the background, the Justice Gang are fighting this alien thing. And, Lois Lane ain't looking at it with awe or confusion. He's not really caring. Obviously, he's in a different place. He's trying to find Crypto. But I really loved that there's not a lot of care for what was going on in the background, even though it looked so menacing and drastic. It basically telling us that this world, this city, Metropolis, whatever, has dealt with so much already. Like, that is just another day in the city, which, without showing us loads of stuff, it really contextualized it for us perfectly. I know I'm jumping all over the place right now, but let me go with it. I'm just remembering, I watched it yesterday. I thought the beginning, there's somewhat of the text scroll, or it's not scroll, but the text popping up, 3 decades, 3 years, 3, minutes and things like that. I really love that. It really brings you right into the moment, especially this being the first film within the DCU, the new DCU run by James Gunn. It was really cool to be plopped into this world, and this idea that I said already about the fact there's aliens fighting in the background, no one's caring. It kind of showed you there's so much stuff going on. He's just lost the fight against this. Okay, now we're going back. He's been healed. He's going back to the fight. It was cool in that sense. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the story. I thought it worked quite seamlessly. I loved the pocket dimension. I was a little bit confused when I was seeing stuff play out. The fact that Lex Luthor has all of these people imprisoned in this pocket dimension, and he's using this molecule man to put kryptonite to... I just loved that whole sequence, that whole world, that whole vibe of it was so dark, it was so menacing that Lex Luthor just if you cross my path, I'll put you in this pocket dimension and people will just be like, he's just this missing person. That was really, really interesting, really, really cool. Lex Luthor's mission made sense, his goal, his desires made sense, and then of course his comeuppance was sweet and perfect as well. And I really enjoyed the conversations with Lois Lane and Superman as well. I thought there was so much good about this film, which I was not surprised about, but I was surprised. I've watched a few, obviously, DC films I've never really engaged with. I remember watching Wonder Woman. They were never really that great. And this just felt like James Gunn at his best again, Guardians of the Galaxy. He does something with characters that make you so invested into them or so intrigued by them straight off the bat. Which I was with, Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific and Hawk Girl, just plopping these little things in, you're interested, and I was very interested. The story was perfect. Speaking of the characters, though, the first animal I want to mention, I've given it away, Crypto, and I've got my very own Crypto here. Ain't that right? Yeah. Crypto was unreal. I think that's actually a brilliant addition to the film. I know, again, Crypto is probably is a massive part of the Superman stuff anyway, but I feel like you don't have to include it, but he's made an active choice to include it. And James Gunn, I've watched some interviews with him and stuff, and he's spoken so much about how animals are a big thing for him. He loves dogs. He done Scooby-Doo. In Guardians, Rocket Raccoon is the main character. He basically revealed after the trilogy was complete. And then in this film, he's added Crypto in. And, from the beginning, Crypto is the one saving Superman in that sense. And then he's the one... I don't know, I just loved it's a dog in it. You know what you're going to do when you put a dog in a film. You're going to feel for them when he cries, when Superman's about to leave. That instantly, I've got a dog, as you just saw. you know, it instantly just plays on those emotions. And it was perfect that he was included, because we see so much about Superman's character. He's so in love with animals. He's in love with life. You know, whether that's him saving a squirrel mid-battle, you know, it made sense for Krypto to be there because it played on that emotion. And when Krypto obviously gets taken away, and in that moment when the things are all in its face, I felt so like, no, he can't die. But then obviously when we see him trying to find him, and he confronts Lex Luthor, he loses his head. Where's the dog? Like, it makes sense. I would do the same thing, you know? John Wick did the same thing, you know? Don't take a man's dog. It's quite simple. But as I said, James Gunn just does it perfect with these, you know, the ensemble of characters that he puts into films, in my opinion. I loved the Scooby-Doo films as a kid. You know, they're all perfect in my eyes. And then Guardians of the Galaxy is fantastic. And it just done it again here. Mr. Terrific, Lois Lane, you know, Lex Luthor, they're all fantastic characters with a lot of weight to them. They had a lot to them. Green Lantern's obviously a little bit of a dickhead, but I really like that as well. Like, you know, when he makes the decision to save the people, the Justice Gang go over there. And I love the little jokes of the Justice Gang stuff. Yeah, I just really enjoyed the characters. And more specifically, I'd go into Lex Luthor. You know, every superhero film, any film like this, you need to have a good antagonist to go with your protagonist. And when you've got Superman, so well done, I feel like, in this film. As I said, I've not watched enough DC to really say better than Henry Cavill, better than XYZ. But for me, I loved his performance. I just loved him. I thought he was perfectly done, where, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of overpowered superheroes. Like, you know, Superman is the ultimate being. Laser your eyes, fly here, do this, that. But he felt like he was in trouble in battles. And I just liked that I want to say the word humanized him more than I thought they would, you know, within the dialogue and within the story, but also within the action as well. Like, he wasn't unbelievable where it was like, okay, no one can beat him. And it was made better. Like, he was struggling against this Ultraman person. Of course, it was him, which I liked as well. I already mentioned, but Lex Luthor, I thought his reasoning for doing things was really perfect as well. And he's like a narcissist. He wants to be the person in charge and like in control. And obviously Superman is preventing him from, you know, selling his arms and being in as control as he'd like to be. So he needs to get rid of him. His morals and his justification for doing things made sense. And I did just mention Ultraman, but I want to go into that again very quickly. I like that sort of conversation there, because I think Ultraman, being the cloned version of Superman, was a decent reveal. I wasn't like that, but I was like, oh damn. And then when you think about it, it's like probably Ultraman is like the epitome and like the symbolic representation of what his parents wanted him to be, you know, wanted him to be a devourer, to take over and be evil, basically, of the human race. But because he only got the beginning of the message, that was Superman. So it was kind of like the human Superman, like the empathetic, like this version of him, versus the dark version of Superman that he could have ended up like, but he didn't. So when they're fighting each other, you know, it's kind of like that battle happening. And then at the end of the film, we see him have the messages around him of his family, of his human family. It made it feel like, yeah, he beat him. He beat the idea of him being that other Superman, you know? And I like that sort of metaphoric, sort of symbolized thing there. I know I've mentioned a lot of positives right now, but let's get into some negatives. There were a few things that I thought, but not as much as what people online are saying for some reason, okay? For me, some of the fights were a little bit janky, like in the flying, the CGI, whatever. It felt like, oh, this looks a little bit too much. But then it's instantly made up for it with the Mr. Terrific fight with the 360 cam. Like, that was unreal. With the music as well. Just seeing him just obliterate everyone. I don't know how to describe this film. I literally talk about negatives and I'm going back to positives, but it just felt so lively, so... I don't know. It just felt so, I don't know, alive. And I feel like that's what James Gunn did with the Guardians films. I've always felt like something was happening. It was colourful. It was vibrant. It was energetic. There was things happening. Even dialogue wasn't dragging. It was meaningful. Like, I think I saw it was 12 minutes. The bit where Lois and Clark Kent, obviously Superman, have the conversation with each other where he's getting interviewed. Apparently that's 12 minutes long. One of my favourite scenes in the film. Because that was the debate and the story and the conversation that I loved, but people were moaning about that. And I've seen online people were moaning that there were no casualties in the fight at the end and the world splitting. And my negative here was like no one was really reacting. So there was one bit where there's like the dimension splitting. It goes across the water and it goes to the other city or whatever. And there's people like watching, being like, I think it's coming here. We've got to go now. Sorry, it's been happening for about 10 minutes and you've not left yet. Like, you're watching it. What made you think But then I kind of like say, okay, wait, no. When Superman's back at his apartment, as I just said earlier, and the Justice League are fighting that alien, you know, they don't really care. So clearly it's something where like, oh, things are happening, but we'll be fine. Maybe that's why they didn't. So that kind of justifies that a little bit. One of the big things I've seen people moan about, though, is him saving the squirrel in the massive alien fight in the middle of Metropolis. I liked that. It really just made him... It really exaggerated his character more, which made me think, okay, he's literally like, it's not just humans, it's life. And he's the savior of life. He wants to save everything he can, any being. You could say, oh, silly, but it was meaningful. And then even in the fight with the alien, he's saying, can we, you know, capture it and send it somewhere else, like a zoo, you know, like send it to a galactic zoo somewhere, not kill it. And obviously I enjoyed the contrast in the morals of the Justice Gang. You know, Mr. Terrific puts the things inside, boom, done, simple. Whereas he wants to find the most ethical way about doing things. And that could be a very interesting thing to see more in the future with what the DCU does. So yeah, those were a few negatives that people were saying. I didn't have many, surprisingly. I didn't have many negatives. Maybe there was a little bit here or there that I maybe would have done differently or didn't care for as much. Like, for example, obviously it was a big plot point, but the selfie stuff, I despise. I mean, it made sense because obviously she was part of it and she was with Lex Luthor and whatever. But there's something about... No, actually, I hate this about superhero films. I hate this about films when they really like exaggerate the fact that like, oh wow, the new generation, they're all on their phone. If there was a massive street like world-ending thing, no one's gonna be here being like, look in the background, that's crazy. No one's gonna be doing that, or no one's gonna be filming it when their like literal life is on the line. Like they're right next to this alien's foot and they're filming it. Like, come on, man. Like that really annoys me about. A lot of films do it where they really try and exaggerate like this new generation are all on their phones. I'm part of that generation, but I promise you, I'm 10 toes down the road. I'm running for my life. You know, I don't understand why they do that. But again, not massive negatives whatsoever. So my final thoughts of Superman. Look, this is the first film in the DCU, the new revamped DCU run by James Gunn. This one was directed by James Gunn as well, which I think has made it better. My final thoughts, of course, this film was really, really good. You can see by how much I've spoken positively about it. I can't explain to you how much I loved the pocket dimension and how dark that was. That person made a blog about him and he said, yeah, I'm locking you up in this pocket dimension for the rest of your life. Mental. What did I rate it out of 10? I rated it an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was a really, really strong superhero film. I enjoyed the characters that were introduced. It was James Gunn at his best. What I will say, though, so first of all, I never really thought I'd get into DC. I'm always Marvel. I'm MCU. I watched it when it first, 2008, 2009, when it was first starting up. All these films. I love the MCU. The characters, the humor, the action, the emotion within it. I love the MCU. And it was always DC. I literally never cared for DC. It was always darker. It was always a little bit more bland. It felt like unseasoned food, whereas Marvel was so seasoned. Whereas this just felt just as seasoned, if not a little bit more. Maybe not. Okay, let me not lie. The best Marvel films are still better than this. And I love the Guardians a bit more. But like this was perfect. And what I would say is I'm very excited now to see more. And I'm surprised I'm saying that. I will watch and look forward to the next DCU film with James Gunn in charge. But what I will say, that James Gunn won't direct all of them. Of course, that's impossible. That's too much to do. And I think that might sway it big time. I loved James Gunn and what he did with Guardians. So I was like, I'm going to have to give this a go. And I'm glad I did. Will it consistently be like that? Definitely not. And I don't think it will hit the heights of Marvel. I don't know. Will it? So yeah, that's what I think about this film. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. Make sure you subscribe to Floppy Legs right now. That's me. And let me know what you think about the future of the DCU. I've been Floppy Legs and I'll see you when I see you.